Hey, welcome to Hangar Z Podcast. I'm your host, John Gray. With us today is one of our really good friends. We just can't get ourselves away from our Southern California brothers. But this is a conversation that we've had in the works for quite a while. And honored to bring you Manny Dickerson from LAPD. Like I said, this is one of those conversations that we've been having off and on for a little bit. I think we actually first started talking about it at San Bernardino County's fly-in back in May.
Sure did.
So it's an honor to have you on. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. We had Jack on. We've had him on a few times.
My mentor.
And yeah, man, everybody loves Jack.
Yeah.
So it'll be really cool to hear from you and your experience at LAPD and how your relationship with Jack was kind of founded, and we'll dig into that as we go. And really interested to hear about your guys' TFO selection program. I know that's something that you guys spend a lot of time and put a lot of effort into developing and working on. So excited to dig into that, in addition to just all the other things that you guys have going on. This will be a really fun conversation. Before we start that part of the conversation, we got to get into drink of the day. And offline, I was just telling you that drink of the day is an opportunity for us to talk about whatever beverage we're having as we talk to our friends about aviation and more specifically public safety aviation. So for me today, I'll have to back up a little bit. I'll talk about the little mug that I got. It's at AppsCon this year. The Bell guys hooked us up with some Bell Yeti mugs, which I love. Anytime I can get a Yeti mug, with a hot or cold beverage,
absolutely.
It's so good. They keep the beverages hot or cold, for so long.
Get you away from the red Solo cup too.
Yeah, not looking as white trash.
Exactly.
Sporting an actual Yeti. So for today, being that it's early and it's Monday, it's coffee for me. I'd like to support a coffee maker who's either supporting public safety, one of our law enforcement brothers that's making coffee, or one of the military producers. So this one's Black Rifle Coffee.
Yep.
It's their Silencer Smooth. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. So I'm rolling with that today. And being that you're at work, what are you rolling with?
Well, I already had my coffee, but right now it's good old-fashioned water, bottled water.
Well, we're missing Jeff, so you can be the stand-in for Jeff. Jeff's always got the water in hand, so we'll take it.
Okay.
For the next segment, we like to break the ice with what we call the hot seat. And being that you're the chief TFO at LAPD, you're no stranger to the hot seat and what's required in that position. So these questions are just random questions designed to get you thinking on your toes, get the brain juices flowing, and break the conversational ice a little bit. So the first question, being in law enforcement or in public safety in general, a lot of times we get the weirdest tasks assigned to us. And I can think of all kinds of assignments that I've been given. I'm like, why am I doing this? When I worked for the Forest Service, I was young. I started when I was 18, and I left there when I was, I think, 24. But you have a crew of young kids, on an engine, so they got to make sure they give you these tasks to do to keep you busy when you're not working on a fire. So a lot of times it'd be like, go dig this hole, and then you fill the hole back in. It was one of those kind of things. So the question is, what's the worst job that's ever been assigned to you?
Oh, geez. The worst. I'd have to probably go back to my Marine Corps days. I know there's so much out in that I was assigned that I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? But let's keep it aviation. And I remember since you brought up fires, that I was tasked. We had this huge fire up in the Santa Clarita Hills, and I was tasked to go pick up a couple fire chiefs so they could get their assessment at night of the fires. No firefighting training, no firefighting experience, nothing like that at all. And next thing you know, I'm over this wildfire. I mean, acres and acres of wildfires at night, this amber glow. And I just feel the heat, the thermals, it's rocking me all over the place, going, what am I doing? I mean, it's not so much of a horrible assignment, because it was pretty spectacular as far as looking at a fire from right above. But yeah, I had no idea what I was doing there.
When you look back over the course of your career and some of the things that you'd done maybe in the earlier parts of your career, and you look back, you're like, why did I do that? And I can think of that in a lot of different circumstances, not so much why did I do this, but on the topic of flying over fire, we flew on under NVGs for training flights quite a bit through the Cone Pass, and we'd fly up the Cone Pass, up by the San Andreas Fault, and then cross up to Wrightwood and maybe cross over the top or come back around. And I think it was the sheep fire had burned through that area that we fly through. It was probably like 4 or 5 years ago. So we put the NVGs on and went for a night flight with, the fire had already been put out primarily, but all the embers, everything was glowing like crazy flying under NVGs. It was actually really cool. A little different than what you're talking about. Definitely didn't have the thermals, but I guess it became more of a training / sightseeing mission with the NVGs on during that flight.
Yeah. Well, for myself, it was like I had two chiefs behind the helicopter so they can look at the fire and get an assessment. I get it. But to me, it's like, yeah, it's a fire and it's big. What else do you think? Nothing more different than the news choppers that were filming way above us. But
right.
I guess they wanted to see it firsthand.
Do you guys find yourself in a collateral role very often, supporting the fire department with those types of?
No, not really. No, we want to get out of their way. They got a job to do. They're on multiple frequencies, and if anything, we'll communicate with them, advising that we're being called in by ground troops to make announcements, hit the siren, get evacuations going, things like that. But that's as far as it usually goes. Otherwise, we want to stay out of their way.
I know LA City Fire Air Ops is a pretty cool program. How often do you guys work and train with them?
Oh, all the time. Consider partners, friends, train together. Really good friends. So we've been to their facility on a number of occasions. They invite us to their Dunker training. And then, of course, their entry-level pilots go through our pilot program to the point where we get our pilots to their commercial rating, and then we take fire pilots up to that point and then hand them back over to fire to continue their training. So, yeah, it's been a great partnership, a good relationship. I think when I first got to air support, it was a struggle to communicate, which kind of led to safety concerns. But between the training and the partnership we have with them, it's really good. Really good relationship. We're on first name basis. A lot more communication and coordinating goes on. So yeah, it's very healthy.
That's cool. And I think a lot of times people think the relationship between law enforcement and fire is contentious. And in some places it is, but I think, we're doing a very similar job most of the time, and we could benefit from each other's training and experience. So it's really cool when we get a chance to do what you're doing,
Sure.
to have a good relationship. And
if I could tap on that, the like Hollywood division, their fire department and our Hollywood police department is separated by a common wall. Allegedly, there's been water balloons, maybe some eggs, some thrown across, and some other foreign objects, but it's all in good fun.
Oh, that makes it fun. That's the best part. I'll get into this a little bit more of the pilot training conversation as we go, but I saw photos of LA City Fire's 505 they got, and I'm assuming they got that for a training capacity. Do you know anything about their 505?
I do not. I know that because our pilots are trained in the Bell Jet Ranger, which we moved on to training primarily in the H1 or the AS350B2. We were kind of encouraging them to go that route, but they really like the 505.
The next question's completely random too.
Okay.
One of the questions I ask is, if you had a business, what would you name it? I always like those kind of questions. I think the thought process that comes out of that's always really interesting. To answer that, if I had a business, I've said, I think multiple times, it'd be a gas station. I'd call the gas station I Got Gas. But this question is, if you had a band, what would its name be?
Oh, man, I've had these before. I've had these thoughts before. If I had a band, what would it be?
For me, I don't know. As a kid, again, going back to the business question, I always thought it was fun to come up with names of businesses. And then I also thought it'd be fun to come up with the name of a band, but I play no musical instruments. So the prospect of me joining a band is like zero. But I always thought if I did, one of the names I came up with was No Sense. Like, it makes no sense, but sense would be CENTS, because you also have no money because you suck. So that's kind of where I went with the band name as a kid. So I don't know if that's something you ever considered. You play any musical instruments or anything?
No. I have friends that are in bands, and I love live music. I love dive bars, and I love the imperfections of a band just getting together and a cover band. I really like it.
What's your favorite kind of music, genre wise?
Well, it comes and goes. Right now I'm on an 80s hook. There's all type of music I like. The one I really can't turn on the radio and cruise with is reggae. I don't
Okay.
know, something about reggae. Even my favorite place to vacation is in the Bahamas.
Hmm.
Hands down. Take me on a cruise to the Bahamas, Caribbean, love it. I cannot get down with that reggae music, no matter how hard I try. But my wife, she heavily got me into country, old school country. But then I kind of went off to the new country, which she
Yeah.
resists a little bit, but because she's all old country. And then I'm on a 80s, 90s kick right now.
Yeah.
I could not tell you the current today's hits artists right now like my kids
Yeah.
could. It's funny
Right.
because our parents did that to us when we were younger. I couldn't tell you a name of a band. When I hear them on the news, I'm like, who is that? I have no idea. My
Right.
kids are in the car. I'll turn that song up, Dad. It's like, oh, who is that? Never heard of
I
them
think
before.
the first time I realized that I was older was when I asked, it was actually a traffic stop. And I had asked the kid driving the car for whatever the reason was. I don't even remember what I asked in a question. I asked him if he liked Dave Matthews. And he looked at me with this like puzzled look in his face. He's like, "Who's Dave Matthews?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You don't know who Dave Matthews is?" And then I realized I'm like, man, I guess I'm dating myself now because I don't consider Dave Matthews to be old, but I think kids generally know who's popular when it comes to music. And he
Yeah.
had no clue who Dave Matthews was. So I was like, wow, I guess I'm there, you know?
No. But you know
Um,
what? And this is not because of my kids. I'm happy about it, and I don't think they were influenced by me because I see it elsewhere. Social media, when everyone posts a reel or something, it's 80s rock music in the
yeah,
background, or they
yeah,
twist it with their own beat, but it's 80s music. And I'm like, that is pretty awesome. That was pretty awesome. To be honest with you, when I was in the 80s, I mean, I was more like the Metallica, AC/DC 80s kid. But so I hated the Wham and Boy George era.
yeah.
But now I listen to it. It's like I can cruise with this for a little bit. So, on the car, the streaming music, I'll hit 80s hits and be good to go for a long drive.
Yeah, I'm down with 80s music too. You're gonna walk into the hangar tomorrow, and your walk-in song is gonna be the Boy George song that all your all,
I
all
should
your
have said that
crewmates
part.
here.
But in the mornings when I go kiss the kids goodbye, they're all sleeping still. My son, his Alexa, I'll hear music at a low tone, and he has 80s rock on there. Yeah, all
That's
right.
cool.
And then yeah, my wife, I call her, hey, how's it going? She goes, I had to go to Nathan, my son's school, give him a shirt. I said, what? Well, you wore the Hell's Bells AC/DC shirt to school. I
Uh,
go, and you let him? She goes, oh, it's cover album. I go,
yeah.
honey, you know they're gonna send him over call. You can't wear that there. So yeah, thanks to the wife, she had to go and make a trip to the school.
That's funny. Our friend Tony Weber, he's always putting reels up with 80s. It goes to 80s music, and
Hmm.
that's it's all good stuff. So yeah, there's something to be said for 80s, and I love that it's coming back. You watched all the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and
Yeah,
the 80s influence in there is really cool. So yeah, it's been
yeah,
fun to watch those
yeah.
and reminisce, I guess, on that music. But that's it. That's our hot seat questions. Like I said, it's just kind of an opportunity to break the ice and walked and done some random roads.
That's a good one
So
because it has chilled me out a little bit. I just wish I had a better answer for that band name. I know I'm gonna come up with them later.
yeah, we'll think of it mid conversation during the podcast. But man, really honored to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, thank you.
Always really respected you. Really respected LAPD. You guys do some really
It's
awesome
mutual.
stuff.
Yeah.
You guys, the aircrew school that you guys put on, or the aircrew course that's coming up in September, that was something I got to go to before I was even selected at Air Support. I remember walking into your guys' facility, and I thought I was in the coolest place on the face of the earth. And I'm not wrong. It's amazing. Your guys' facility. I felt like walking out in the flight line. It was like a stationary aircraft carrier, and I'm sure you've heard that before.
Yes.
But it was like the coolest thing, and so to sit through your guys' class, it was at the time it was a free course. Is it still free to
It is.
the
It is.
students?
No money is asked for and no money is taken. We make lots of friends, a lot of networking, and idea sharing, safety talks. I'm so happy that I have a commanding officer who supports that.
Yeah,
I've been here long enough to have 11 of them, and all 11 of them think it's a great idea. Where
yeah,
there's been talk of why don't we? well, a lot of reasons why I can think of right off the top of my head, but having the support of the command for doing it the way we do it, it's motivating.
Yeah. I mean, it's a world-class training opportunity. And when I went, there was folks there from Australia, all over the world, and
Mhm.
the class, I think the class filled up the year I went within a couple of days of you guys making the announcement for the course.
Yeah,
So
I don't even get an opportunity to advertise. And once the word is out, it fills quickly. We have Calgary is our out of country agency attending this year, and we have Texas and Maryland coming in. I think Maryland's going to be the furthest. So 18 different agencies.
that's huge. 18 agencies. What is it?
I'm sorry,
40-ish?
19 agencies. Calgary just jumping on board last week. And, I max it out at 55. It's just, I don't like to turn down anybody. If I could
Yeah.
have everybody, I would, but, I try to keep it professional. No one wants to sit sideways in a chair or sit at a chair with nothing in front of them for a 40-hour course. So, I try to keep it, comfortable, a chair and a table in front of you and a setting that's, welcoming. So, I limit at 55 and I'll usually have about a 2 to 3% last minute cancellation. So we average anywhere from 50 to 55.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember, every day was obviously something different, but one of the days we got to go to the academy for lunch, and that was really cool going to your guys' academy. Because my academy is much different. The history that's passed through the walls at that academy and in that cafeteria,
Yeah, it's a
just being
big,
a part of it.
it's a big hit. So we serve lunch every day in the hangar, and Thursday, when we're towards the end of the course, Thursday is when I take them to the academy. And I found the hard way that I have to set aside an hour and a half. Sometimes well, this year I stuck it to an hour and a half, and that's being generous because we'll go there, we'll have lunch at the Academy Cafe. It's a buffet, and then I will say, okay, you guys, we have Academy Store. There's the shooting ranges. There's the quad where we have our graduations. A lot of history here. Walk around. Feel free to take pictures. And then when it's time to go, it's like herding kittens. It is worse than trying to get my kids together.
Yeah.
We're waiting by the van and I just can't get them because they're all over the place. But it is one of the most popular days for them to go
Yeah.
see that.
That was
Now,
that
I
was
don't know
really
if you
cool.
know this, but when I went through the academy, I started there and I finished there. Now we have two offsite academies where they learn academics and physical fitness, and then tactics and driving at another one. But they always come back to that academy to graduate. I was fortunate enough to start there and end there, so
That's
it's
cool.
still a lot of history there.
I went to San Diego PD. I started with San Diego PD, and I went to their regional academy. And their regional academy is at a junior college, so it's not like you're walking onto the grounds of LAPD's historic facility.
Hmm.
Their facility, it's nice, but it's a college campus, so you don't have that same nostalgic feel that you get when you go to your facility. There was a lot of offsite training locations. You brought up that you're a Marine. One of the funniest parts of my academy, we went to Miramar for the gas house. And when you get to the gas house, there's a Marine that's in charge of that facility that outlines the rules. And he tells you will not spit on my floor and you will not throw up my floor. So if one of those two things happen, you got to deal with it in a way that you got to deal with it, but it's not going to be
Oh,
on
I'm
my
already getting
floor.
bad memories.
So one of my buddies, we go through the gas house and it makes him sick. He's going to throw up. And he remembered the guy telling him that if he threw up on the floor, he was going to get in trouble. So he pulls his shirt out and throws up down his shirt.
Well, if
So
you ever got caught in the Marine Corps spitting on the ground, if you got caught, you had to pick it up and put it in your pocket.
that's great. Well, going back to your guys' your aircrew school, I'm really excited to check that out again and to hear
Oh,
the students their opinions of the course, because it's always a first rate
yeah.
class. And
Glad
so
you're
thanks
joining
for,
us.
yeah, it'll be really cool. We've talked a little bit about, jumped ahead a little bit and talked a little bit about training. Let's go back and talk about, how where you grew up, where you went to school and what even got you into law enforcement aviation. But we'll start with where you grew up.
Okay, well, I grew up in the Almonte area, West Covina, Baldwin Park area. That's where I was originally. That's where my extended family still is. I lived there till probably about 10 years old. And then my stepfather, he uh he was in the insurance business, Liberty Mutual, and they wanted him to run the East Coast office in Boston, Massachusetts for 5 years. So we up and moved out back east. So I was
Wow.
very fortunate to get some East Coast experience in my life. I loved Massachusetts.
Yeah.
To this day, at 10 years old, 40 years later, I still have Facebook friends, social media friends that I made out there. And was out there till about 15 years old and
That's cool.
got to experience all 4 seasons, unlike you can in Southern California. Uh, and then my father was offered the LA office, and my parents picked Simi Valley as where we're going to live. So I've been in Simi Valley since about 84, 85, and I'm still there. That's where I raised my family. It's still got that hometown feel to it. Got out there. I lived in my third location in Simi, and went to Simi Valley High School. And right upon graduating Simi Valley High School, I rolled right to the Marine Corps. It was just something I wanted to do. College was always in my sights. I just wasn't really school driven, and I really was motivated to be well, there's a story why I wanted to be a Marine. In high school, I was the team captain for the wrestling team at 98 pounds. I was a lightweight. I was a small kid. My senior year, I was wrestling 105s, and I always wanted to be a police officer. So I said, who's gonna beef me up and get me bigger and stronger other than the Marine Corps? So that was the route I took. So I went in the Marine Corps, did some online. It's funny, they talk about join the Marine Corps, join the military, GI Bill, you go to school, finish school. Try to finish school by being a full-time grunt in the infantry and the Marine Corps. Not easy at all. But yeah, that's where I grew up, and that's where I decided to raise my family in
Okay.
Ventura County, Simi Valley area.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Two things on that. We just had a conversation with one of our friends who's a Navy SEAL, and we were talking about buds, and he said when he looked at, trends of people who graduated, who made their way through buds, he said wrestlers were by far the most represented group of people that would make their way, that actually graduated from buds. So the training and the mindset that you guys develop as wrestlers, lends to that, which is
Oh,
awesome.
he probably said it best. I mean, I can't think of any more dedicated training and commitment I ever had was being on the was being on the wrestling team. A lot of that had to do with the coach. We had an outstanding coach, and but a lot of it was depending on you making the weight, learning your skills, and working hard, working hard, working hard. And to this day, I still think it's funny. I have it on videotape where, it's usually the team captains go out to meet the ref. It's all the heavyweights. And here I would come with heavyweights and this 98 pounder, 105 pounder coming up. But, the captains were chosen among the peers of the team. And, it was always an honor to be, chosen as
Yeah,
team captain.
no
But,
kidding.
what's also funny is my region where I wrestled, I was good. I was good. And then I joined the Marine Corps. And then I said, I'm gonna go for the Marine Corps wrestling team. Well, I've gotten a lot heavier, but now wrestling some Midwest, Iowa corn fed, guy my size who was just strong. Guy from Texas who's probably wrestling, bulls and stuff. They're just strong. I grabbed the arm. I'm like, oh my God. And, yeah, kind of a rude awakening when you see now you're dealing with, your peers from all over the, nation in the
Yeah.
same sport. And it was a little eye opener there, but still love the
Yeah.
sport.
Well, one of the cool things about that too is it translates into your time in the street. Your ability to grapple with people when the time comes. You're so proficient in your ability to do that. It's huge. So big advocate of the wrestling program.
If you have to get in a fight, I know it's a high percentage. It's going to go to the ground. And I'm a UFC fan, and when we watch it, to hear the commentators always say, "Oh, yeah, he has a wrestling background." They start leaning
Yeah.
towards the skills of well, it's going to the ground. Oh, he's got the
Yeah.
advantage. So
Yep.
for sure.
Well, really cool. And I know growing up where you did, and I guess splitting your time between the West Coast and the East Coast, you had an opportunity to see all kinds of different aviation programs, and did that influence you at all in your desire to fly later? Or what, I guess, drove you to law enforcement to start? Was it just your experience in the Marine Corps?
Yeah. Well, I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted to be a police officer.
Okay.
So I hold high regards to the Marine Corps for putting me on that path. I loved the Marine Corps. It was it did, with any branch of service, you can make what you make out of it and come out successful or not. But I really loved the Marine Corps. Again, the benefits of social media. I know social media could be pretty bad in some areas, but um, I have Marine Corps buddies that I haven't seen in decades that we communicate all the time with social media. That's what's
Yeah.
fantastic about it. But anyway, the I always, since I was 8, as far as I can remember, because I remember watching some of the shows I used to watch. I just wanted to be a police officer. I admired them. I used to watch the shows like Adam 12, Chips, SWAT, Beretta. And what was funny as a young kid too, I thought every officer was LAPD. Everybody was LAPD. I thought Chips was LAPD because when you're young, you don't really know. And
Yeah.
I just loved watching the show, and I always had that in my goal. So joining the Marine Corps, and then learning later that there's different agencies, but still, it was always embedded. LAPD is my number one goal, is where I want to get to. So that's how I really got into the law enforcement, the desire to. The When I was in the Marine Corps, I had learned that it took about a year to process to be selected into an academy. So I started my process 1 year before my honorable discharge was supposed to be. December of '92 was my discharge. So I started processing way back then. Between the Camp Pendleton coming up to LA, testing, written tests, physical, all that stuff. But they were in a bit of a hiring freeze under Chief Gates at the time. Around September of '92, I thought I was going to be a career Marine, which was okay with me because I figured if I'm a re-enlist, that's 8 years. I'm halfway there. So I'm going to be a career Marine. It's maybe just not in my sights. And around September, I got the call from the LAPD saying, you have academy class. You're hired.
Uh,
And you can't imagine how I felt, but I'm still in the Marine Corps. So
yeah.
the Marines, in any military branch, it will do an early discharge if you have something like that lined up. So, I got honorably discharged in September of '92, for an academy class that was canceled.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was canceled, and you could probably guess that at that time, uh, Tom Mayor Bradley didn't want Gates to have another academy class. He was looking for another chief, and there's some debates on how to go forward with that. So there was a bit of a hiring freeze during this process. So here I am, almost 4 years of doing my own laundry, cooking my own meals, taking care of myself. I'm back home. That was a hard pill to swallow. Love my family, love my mom to death, but now she's doing my laundry, she's cooking my meals, and she's cleaning my room. That was all lost. But I was home, and I needed to find a job, so uh, I applied for asset protection at Mervin's. Okay, it's the guys that look for shoplifters.
Okay.
So the funnest job in the world, and I'll tell you why. As a cop now, to watch the body language of an untrained person, to watch the body language of someone who's about to steal, it stands out. I don't know if people realize the signs that they're given, but we had these security cameras, and you could see it right when they walked in. They're gonna go. They're gonna steal, and they do. Anywhere from kids to housewives to adults. I mean, shoplifting was busy, and I was working at a Mervyn's in the Valley area near Fallbrook. And what was my desire to be an officer, I was taught how to write that arrest report, your source of activity, your observation, and that's where it really stops. But I was
Yeah.
taught how to do all that, and so I'm getting a head start on report writing. And when the officers came and took the body, boy, I felt like I'm part of the team. I was
Oh, that's
this
cool.
alley because it was a valley. This LAPD, two LAPD officers would come. I would tell them the story. I show them my report. They read the report. Okay, good job. They would take the person, the evidence, and leave. And I was on cloud nine, thinking I was part of the cause. I'm here to
Yeah.
save the world.
Oh, cool.
And well, I'm gonna jump fast forward real quick because when I became an officer, working patrol to get that call said, see the
Yeah.
Chicago holding a 44, so where you go, ugh.
Yeah.
I had no idea that those officers were probably getting the same ugh when I had a
Right.
body.
I
So
remember getting calls. The worst was you get an in custody shoplifting call at Walmart with 5 juveniles. And you're just like, oh my gosh, the last thing you want to
Right?
deal with, right?
So here I am thinking, like, I am part of the team. I made it. I'm halfway there. I'm writing arrest reports. I'm arresting people, and LAPD's here to get my body. They're probably walking and going, we need this guy on our team. That's what I felt, right? Little did I know that those officers felt like my pain when I got the same call back going, oh. So
but you know, it's cool. We talk about how, you know, people how we positively influence other people's life choices and the things they do going forward. So it's a good reminder as an officer when you do walk into that Mervyn's, well, Mervyn's isn't around anymore, but Target or Walmart or whatever, that loss prevention person, that interaction that you have with them might be the motivation that gets them to apply, you know, become a police officer down the road.
Such a good point, because I study those officers. I can remember, I can see their faces right now. I looked at their uniform from top to bottom. Spectacular. The badge, their leather, their uniform. It was just the most amazing. I mean, I was so admirable of these guys and their professionalism. I mean, it could have gone different. It could have said, "Oh, what do you got now? Oh, this is all screwed up. You don't have anything here." It was nothing like that at all. It was good job, kid.
Yeah.
And they walked away, and such an impression. So I did try to carry the same thing. I just did the before I got there. So
yeah, clear out of your system, and then when you get there, it's all good job, good job.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I got the call in. It was the turn of the year of '93 when my background officer had called and said, "We got a class for you. You're hired again."
That's
and
cool.
It was a class for '93, and I entered the academy with April 1993. It was under the new Chief Williams, and I was the second class under there. But
Looking back
that's how I started.
On your academy, what was the graduation rate for most of your academy classes?
Well, we started with 38 and we graduated with 36. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's good.
So, I mean, I think the class in September was a combination of the 393 and the 493, because at that time, 38 was a small class for LAPD. That's what it was considered. And then in time, I guess the transition between the chiefs, the classes got bigger and bigger and bigger in time. I think it was more of a feel out to see, okay, we got a new chief. Let's start a new class. Small. I think the first class was about the same size.
Okay, very cool. Now, I think most people have an idea or an understanding of LAPD, but some don't. For those that don't, can you talk about LAPD kind of broadly? You know, how big the city is, how many divisions you guys have, and kind of what some of the special assignments are that you can get into?
Sure. We're about 9,000. We're approved for 10,000. So there is some hiring going on. There's approximately 3,000 civilian employees on the LAPD. We have 21 geographic divisions, and for those listening elsewhere, these precincts you refer to them as. We're 502 square miles of the municipal cities surrounded by the LA County. We have numerous municipal cities within LA City, like Inglewood, Culver City, San Fernando, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica.
Yeah, real quick while we're on that topic, typically the unincorporated cities get service from the sheriff's department for, you know, policing services, air support, that type of thing. Do you guys offer air support services to those cities?
Every day,
Okay.
every day. And you're right. Sheriffs are contracted to handle those cities. We are unique in the way we deploy. We have a very regimented flight schedule. We fly 20 hours a day on patrol. We see ourselves as a patrol car in the sky. So a lot of agencies and a lot of cities know that. So they're very quick to call LAPD for assistance. We have radio packages that can talk to any agencies from the helicopter, and we do. We have a commanding officer that supports that, and I think one of the best answers I've ever heard him give was, because it's bad business not to. You know, we have brothers and sisters out there requesting help. It doesn't matter if we're a contractor or not, we go. And we do.
Right.
And we assist those officers out there on a daily basis.
And that just lends to the brotherhood that exists within law enforcement. You know, we're here to help each other regardless of uniform or jurisdiction, you know, and I love that about what we do. That's a huge part.
We're in a helicopter, but if you remember the days in a black and white patrol car, you hear a traffic stop, you roll by, check on them, they give you the 4, and then you move on, or they don't, and you say, "Oh, I'm gonna stick with these guys. They got a group with them." We do the same thing in the helicopter. We hear traffic stop
Yeah.
nearby, we go. And this is all part of the training. You know, we can't hear, see, or smell or all the senses that are going on the ground. So from the helicopter, you have to take your experience and figure out what's going on down there. Okay, there's a
Hmm.
contact officer, there's a cover officer. I hate to use the word routine, but everything looks routine. Okay, he's going back to issue the ticket. Okay, we're good to go. But if I see both officers at the car window for an extended amount of time, I'm getting on the radio and requesting additional unit because my experience, my training knows that there's either resistance or some non-compliance going on, and those officers are about to, this could spin up very quickly. Let's get ahead of it. So,
Yeah.
things like that is part of the TFO training.
And I think that is part of the reason why we're such big advocates for having a sworn pilot as well as a sworn TFO. You know, that TFO, a lot of times their attention's distracted amongst five other things. They might be watching one contact officer at one window, and if the pilot isn't a sworn officer, doesn't understand some of the dynamics you're talking about, it's hard for them to watch that other person and read the cues that you're talking about. So when you have two sworn police officers acting as a crew in a police helicopter, it really increases your efficiency and how, the service you're offering to those ground units.
Absolutely,
I think that's a big part of
absolutely.
it.
Hmm.
Going back to the city dynamics, or demographics, can you talk about the population size of the city and what that looks like?
LA is about 3.8, almost 4 million people,
Okay.
within a 502 square miles.
I imagine your daytime population fluctuates a lot depending on, if the Rams are in town or the Dodgers are in town or who's playing.
Yeah, sure do. Right in downtown, we have the Staples Center venue, and we have the LA Convention that hosts a whole ton of events. Staples Center, well, what do they call it now? Crypto
Yeah,
Center.
crypto arena or something.
Yeah. So, and then you got the YouTube Theater or uh, Microsoft Theater there also. It's just LA Live is really developed into a huge entertainment centerpiece for Los Angeles. So yeah, you're right. Any of those events can, and especially during the night, can really populate the area. And I don't know if you know this, but I don't know if it was going to be called SoFi, but SoFi was going to be put right in between the convention center and Staples Center right downtown. And we always
Oh
thought,
wow.
can you imagine a concert, a football game, and some convention going on at the same time? It would just,
Jeez. Yeah, there's always a ton of people there anyways, and then to add, the increased capacity for those venues going at the
sure.
same time
Hmm.
is crazy. I remember when the Lakers won their championship one of the times, I think it's happened multiple times, but all the fans decided it was a good time to riot and cause a ruckus downtown after that. Did you have any experience or operational experience during those?
Yes, it's mind-boggling. And when you think about how many actually watched the game, or are you just joining the chaos? And to destroy the city and in celebration, and when you have even the athletes asking not to, the drive and the motivation to do that, I don't get it. I don't understand. But the airship played a huge role in the mobile field force and how to blocking forces for the crowd movement and funneling the crowds into an avenue of escape, if you will. Yeah, the area plays a key role in the downlink mission and the command and control of the event. The airship plays a huge role in that.
I think every time I've been on a flight with you guys, there's been some sort of demonstration in the downtown area that you guys have overflown to provide that kind of resource to. And at the time, it was, you're a pilot in TFO, but do you have in an incident like the Lakers game, for example, where you have somebody from the mobile field force come up and help direct some of the actions from above, or is that primarily the air crew that's doing that?
Well, first of all, the the command post will receive a downlink from one of our ships, downlink ship dedicated to it. Much like a news chopper, we have high def cameras that are getting the footage of whatever's moving down there. And the difference is it's at the command and control of the decision makers at the command post. Show me the march going southbound on Broadway. Show me the crowd in front of headquarters. So it's at your beck and call. So that's what we're there for. And then we have a command and control ship that's actually directing units to push the crowd in certain ways or direct units to form skirmish lines. The TFO, all our TFOs are very experienced. Our average TFO has a decade of patrol experience. That's just on average. And and this has happened on a number of occasions. And I can just recently think of the George Floyd protesting that was going on in downtown LA. You're going to have deputy chiefs, commanders, incident commanders, and in this case, the chief himself look to the airship and say, "Airship, where do you need us? What do you need us to do?" And that happened in Hollywood during one of the George Floyd protests where Chief Moore showed up on scene and he looked to the airship and said, "Everybody stay off the airship, direct us what you need for what we need to do." That's a heavy payload on a police officer rank who's doing that. And that's a lot of trust. And that TFO needs to perform with the command presence, experience, tactical insight, suggestions, recommendations. They have to be on point, and that's what we expect from them.
Yeah. I talk about how difficult that job is a lot, and that's one of the reasons why you have to be in a position where you're willing to tell a lieutenant, a commander, a chief they're doing something wrong or to do something different or to, like you said, just give your tactical insight to them and make decisions. You have to be in a position to do that.
Yeah.
And
you know, I've said this many times. We're just one radio call away from a North Hollywood shootout. We're one radio call away from a school shooting. We're one radio call away from a terrorist attack, given the World Cup and Olympics coming to LA. And if anybody doesn't think none of those are going to happen, they're kidding themselves. For us, our TFOs have to realize that you're going to be over that scene and you're going to get a commander, a deputy chief, the chief himself saying, "Airship, what do we do?" You better know what to do. You have to perform. Your command presence, so the voice that needs to be heard gets responded. Your tactical insight, your recommendations, suggestions, everything needs to be on point. And that's why we have the standards that we have. Those things will happen again.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think we're all in that position. You need to all have that mindset. You know, we talk about being prepared and thinking in advance of where you are. And that definitely requires you to think in advance of each call that you're on, you know, being prepared to deploy resources in a way that's efficient and effective for these different types of responses. You know, getting back to you in your career prior to aviation, what assignments did you work prior to going to aviation?
Oh, I love patrol. I really did. And the reason I smile about it is because, well, let me start with, I did my probation in Northeast Division, which is the, northeast of Los Angeles in the Highland Park area, which is a gang called Avenues. I did that on probation, Highland Park, Northeast area. Probation's a year. About 4 months into my probation, I was recruited to do 21 Jump Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I looked very young, and they snatched me right away. And well, first they asked me, of course, and of course I was very interested. Any challenge I was up for, and they stuck me into schools.
Real quick, for those that don't know what 21 Jump Street is, can you just describe it real quick?
Yeah. So LAPD had a program where it's called School Investigated by Unit, where they would take a young officer, a young looking officer that could pass as a high school student, and they enrolled them into a high school, public high school, and you attend classes for a semester, 3 months. And in that 3 months, your mission was to identify on-campus drug dealers. And at the end of the 3 months, after you've booked your evidence, written your reports, identified who you bought from, you do a roundup where you go and arrest everybody that was involved in the on-campus dealing. Fantastic assignment. I set a precedence by doing it for 2 years. I did 4 schools, the most, because, you know, we're adults. We're in the academy. You can look young for so much, right? But, when you look young and you're producing, they had me do 1 school. I was very successful. I did another school, very successful. Did a 3rd school, which was considered the max for anybody. And then I did a 4th school. And, wow. The program doesn't exist anymore, but, what it was is I would be nickel diming on campus. Well, the first part I would just not get involved in anything. You had to establish a cover because you were the narc. No, every new kid was the narc. Every new kid was the undercover cop. So of course I got labeled, and then you just establish your cover, go to classes, blend in. Then you nickel dime here and there for a little bit when people start getting comfortable or ignorant to you. And then at uh, my final month, the third month I was there, hey Johnny, I need a pound. Hey Johnny, I need a 8 ball. These kids don't carry that, but they know me enough to take me to where they get it. And that's where the big numbers came in. You know, the off-campus adults selling to these kids, sheets of acid, heroin, guns. That's where it really came in pretty heavy. So that's where all the numbers really stacked up and why the department felt a reason to be there. So I did those for real quick side note on this. I did a school and my cover got blown. And it was towards the end anyway, but somebody I had this is the risks too. That's why they limit how many schools you do. Is is oh, by the way, no one knows on campus. The principal, the teachers, nobody knows because that's too risky. Because nobody
Yeah.
wants to be a principal of a school that had 30 some students busted. So nobody knows, and you don't exist on the LAPD records either. I couldn't qualify for 2 years because I just didn't exist. So I'm doing this, and then my cover had gotten blown, and by a student saying, "Hey, that guy's a cop." No, he's not. That's Manny. He's a new kid. No, he's a cop. He busted me a year ago. So anyway, while I was walking off campus, a bunch of other kids came up and, not, they weren't into anything wrong or anything, but they're like, "Hey, man, you a cop? We heard you're a cop." I was so upset about my cover being alone. I just said, "I'm out of here." And I left. One of those kids in that group, I work alongside at air support right now. He was a student. He was a student at one of the schools I was working. Now, again, I didn't know him because he wasn't involved in anything, but he remembers me because he remembers going, "Who is this goofball wearing this chain wallet with his ear pierced with a marijuana leaf and this wallet hat?" And everything. He just thought I was a goofball, but he remembers me. And today he's one of our pilot instructors. But I don't remember him, but he always tells the story. Yeah, I saw you on campus when I was a kid, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's just a goofball of a guy. Who let this guy in? So anyway, I did that for 4 years, and then after that, I went to Rampart, a Rampart Division where I worked patrol. Loved it. 8.2 square miles with I want to say at the time in the 90s, 36 different documented gangs in that
Wow.
8.2 square miles. Very violent. We led the city for 2 years, 96 and 97, in homicides within that 8.2 square miles. But at Rampart, I worked patrol. I worked undercover vice. I was a senior lead officer. I was a P3 lead officer in the Special Problems Unit, which is a unit somewhat like gangs, except we're not dealing directly with the gangs. We work hand in hand with the detectives to do follow-ups and go get people that they have warrants out on. And a field training officer. I did the field training officer, and then I pursued the air support path. Now that was that kind of stumbled across me because when I being right out of the Marine Corps, my sights were set on going to Metro, particularly like SWAT or K9. It's an elite unit, crime suppression. Metro falls under K9, mounted, the crime suppression unit, and SWAT. And that's how I had my sets going. So I was working assignments and divisions I thought would beef up my resume to go to such assignments. One of them was being a field training officer. And I would get a rookie P1 and I took him to 3 locations as part of their training. And I had to learn this the hard way, but one of those locations was a coroner's office. I had one too many rookies freeze up on me seeing a dead body, and
Mm.
we leading the city in homicides, we see dead bodies all the time. I needed them to go to work, so I said, let's
Yeah.
get this over with. Let's go to a coroner's office, and if you can imagine, one building covering all of LA County, anywhere from kids to adults to the elderly are in there. Look at it, smell it, feel it, get it out of your system because when you see it again, you need to go to work. So I would take them
Yeah.
there. The other place I would take them was Twin Towers or Men's Central Jail. I'd go up to the deputies and I'd say, what's a good floor? Take them on third floor. Take them up there and all the inmates would be, they weren't bars, they were the plexiglass and they would be banging on the plexiglass going, I got you, rookie. I'm going to remember your
Yeah.
face. I'm going to get you. I'm going to see you again. Soak it in. You're going to hear this on the street. Don't let it rattle you. You know. And the third place I would take them would be air support. so they can learn how to talk and communicate with the airship. Well, that was for me too, because I loved going up on a ride along. Absolutely loved it. I remember being in the back seat of a ride along going, "You guys just wake up and say, 'Damn, I got to go to work.' I mean, this
Yeah.
is great." So, being a field training officer, those are the three things I would take them to. And coincidentally, within a 2 month period, because I would get a probationer once every 3 to 3 months, and I don't know what the spread was, but it had to be a couple months. It happened to be the same tactical flight officer I rode with. And I'm the same way, talking about how great I think the job is, how awesome they are. And after the flight, he goes, "We have some openings coming up. You should go for it." I looked at him. I said, "I don't know how to fly." He looked at me straight, and he goes, "Neither do I." He goes, "I'm the tactical flight officer. I do all the work." Well, he goes, this infrared light, the spotlight, the infrared, the tactics, the navigation. I don't know how to fly this thing. So he intrigued me, and I thought about it, and put my papers in and never looked back.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended
How
up at
cool.
Air Support. So yeah,
That's
when I decided to do it, I was a senior lead at Rampart, and I don't want to make any waves saying, "Hey, I'm a senior lead. I'm applying to other places." So I did it on the down low. So I do the interview, and this is when we used to number them, one, two, whatever made the list, and I gave a good interview. I went in there. There was the chief TFO and two supervisors, and at the end, one of the supervisors says, Sergeant Kessner says, "You did really good. Did anybody help you or assist you in any way?" This is the only question I panicked on. I went, all I could say was Tactical Flight Officer Mike Rodriguez. I mean, I didn't know what Mike didn't know me. I don't even know if he knew my first name. I just panicked. But that's the guy who I went on a ride along with. And I panicked and I said his name. He goes, "Oh, Mikey. Okay, well, let him know you did a good job." So they see Rodriguez in the hallway or something. And they said, "Hey, your buddy did really good. He came out number one." And Mike's all, "Oh, great." So he actually had a buddy that applied and took the interview, and he called him and tells him he came on number one. We didn't even make the list. And then he sees the list and he goes, "Who the heck is Manny Dickerson?" So that's how I met Mike, and that was my way going to air support. I came up on the loan and was successful and never looked back. But yeah, total career path change from what I had my sights set on to where I'm at today.
Yeah, it's interesting how that happens. You know, it's similar but different story for me. My dad retired from Anaheim Police Department. He retired as a sergeant, and when I became a police officer, my goal was to out promote my dad. You know, I love my dad, but you know, you get that competitive spirit. You want
Right.
to do something a little different. So my goal was to out promote my dad. Well, once I realized that I can go to aviation, and that was its own entire career path, I was like, oh, I don't care about that anymore. I wanted to go to aviation. So, you know, like you, all these things that I had done to prepare myself to promote eventually, you know, became helpful in aviation. You know, all the experience that I had in the street, the investigative stuff, that was huge. So it's funny how, you know, aviation ends up changing your career path. And I'll never, ever regret a decision that I made to go there, because it is the best job in the world. You know, I remember saying exactly what you did. Every day you go to work, you're like, man, this is awesome. This is what I get to do. We're getting paid to do this. This is crazy, you know?
Yep.
So cool for you. You know, you found that out and you pursued it and you made it. And you guys, your TFO selection program is really structured. You guys have a really unique way of not only selecting the TFOs, but putting them through the training process. I think it'd be a good time to kind of talk through that. What does the TFO selection process look like, and how do you get there?